Hello folks and welcome to Tippcast with myself, Shane Stapleton, joined by the Nina Guardian Head of Sport, Shane Brophy, and former Tipperary hurling analyst Sean Flynn, also who's with a hand this year. Shane, we'll jump straight to what happened on Sunday at the weekend in Ennis. We were there. What a high-scoring game, 522 to 323. Let's be honest, last week I was telling you Tipp were going to win. I'm telling you all year Tipp were going to make a bit of a burst this year. Are you a believer?
Slightly more, but it helps when Clare sort of hand you 3 goals and a pint throughout the match. So that's the thing that has me. It was great to win, but we got a series. I think every break that was going last weekend, we got it. But look, when you get to the first round of the championship, I think it's a lot like semi-finals. It's all about winning and getting up and running, a bit of momentum. We've an awful lot to fix, but look, it starts to go. It was ideal.
Yeah, Sean, what are your thoughts on it?
Yeah, that group needed a win, I suppose, especially in the round robin series. I suppose it's their first win outside 2019. It's their first win in the round robin series, I think. So, and as well, we won a game, lads, without, we've lost Brendan, Paddy, Shamey wasn't there. We've lost players over the last few, a couple of years for different reasons. And I think for that group to win a game, whatever way it was won. And we'll probably get into detail about it later on, but the win is massive, and it just means you actually have to turn up on one more day, probably, and if you hit the straps on one more day, you get to an All-Ireland series,
The Tipperary subs got us across the line, Shane, didn't they? I mean, Mark Keogh came in, set up a goal, scored a point. I think he also won a free that was converted. Conor Stapleton had a big influence. Conor Bowe got himself a point. And, of course, Sean Ryan scored a goal with his first ever championship touch. That's got to feel pretty good for him.
Yeah, no, it's something I referenced in my analysis piece this week that, and I think I've said it before, we have serious options in the forward line and options where Liam Cahill can potentially switch it up depending on the opponent. And you think last weekend, Bonner Maher didn't even get a run. Seamus Callanan has to come back. Niall O'Mara has to come back. So, he has serious options up there now. And I was just thinking ahead this morning to Cork, what potentially might do. John McGrath, God, he looked knackered coming off after 59 minutes. I suppose he did play a few games in the league, but championship is championship, and he'll come on for that. But I was thinking, looking ahead to Cork, maybe a Mark Keogh or a Conor Bowe might be better starting that match instead of John McGrath. If you're going to make it just a sort of, because Cork are slightly more athletic, and you might need a little bit more pace in the start, and maybe John might be better coming on when those Cork backs are tired in the second half. So it's great having those options where potentially Cahill and Beavens and the selectors can tinker with the forward line depending on who they're playing.
Yeah, Sean, you did your piece for the Nina Guardian this week, which people could get if they pick up a copy of the paper. But you were kind of focusing on some of the painful scars that this team has had in the last couple of years and how big this win was for them. So, flawed and all, as the victory was, this is nothing but a positive, really.
Yeah, to be honest, I don't know what you think, but I thought that was a Tipp collapse in the second half waiting to happen after the last 10 minutes of the first half.
I was very worried at halftime.
Yeah. I just thought, usually we would have launched puck-outs down into that area, especially against the wind. Clare would have crowded it out and we'd have been in trouble. We saw it last year against different teams. We've seen it before. And I just thought, no, maybe some of it could be down to, Clare's naivety and probably thinking that Tipp in the past haven't used a short puck-out extremely well, probably. It's good for years since we have, And I just thought that we managed the game for that 10-15 minutes. Clare were going to come out all guns blazing, and we kind of dictated the shape of the game, Clare's shape, because they had to push back up once the ball went short, and it kind of made space then down the two sides. And again, I said in the article, it's not prescribed. It's not, it's not something done on a tactics board or anything like that. But it's kind of like our long puck out in disguise, except it was Mikey Breen and it was Ronan hitting them in. But I thought we managed the game excellent, and I just think that's coming from maybe having a management that have managed outside of the county, managed a team with different skill sets. Because I always just feel, I don't know what you think as well, that there is a small bit of an arrogance in Tipperary that we are the best hurlers and we don't have to, I suppose, put too much emphasis on the game management side of the game, because we have a forward or a back that's just going to produce a huge moment and get us out of it. But I just thought the game management there was excellent. Despite everything that was going on for that last 10 minutes of the first half, I thought that first 15 minutes, even when Clare went a man down, I thought was excellent.
Yeah, so
I was just wondering about the two. I mean, that's the two like that first half. Like, do you think because the breeze was there that Barry Hogan was told to go along, or do you think maybe did Clare do something where he couldn't go maybe shorter with the puck out? So I was trying to figure it out. Or did Barry just a bit tight and he didn't want to take any risks? Maybe he was looking at him and Foodie up the other end and thinking, "Geez, I better not shoot myself in the foot down here," because it's we saw against Limerick how excellent he is at those mid-range puck outs.
What do you think, Shane?
Like, to me, right, I think it's kind of, to some degree, play what you see. And, like, you're talking about the puck outs, especially in the second half, and to me, it was a case of, it wasn't that sophisticated. Like, so he'd go short to Breen would turn and lamp it. And, like, to some degree, I reckon the idea is to try and get Clare to push up as high as possible. Something that, like, I know Tipperary sit off the puck outs a little bit, but I'd actually like Tipp to sit off them a little bit more, because I think we leave a little bit too much space. So if we sat, like, that first half was very worrying at times, the way Clare were able to move the ball up the field under no real pressure, but also hit it into areas, just for the two inside forwards to move into under no real pressure as well. So I thought they were able to bypass the numbers a little bit too much. And the whole game was basically 2v2 at one end, 2v2 at the other end, and then just a big mash of players either side of it. But just to come back to the start of the game, I mean, talk about a brilliant start for Tipperary. Like, the 3 points were brilliant, Morris, Nolan McGrath and Brian McGrath. But then the sideline was obviously, jammy enough from a Tipperary point of view. But after that then, Sean, Tipperary didn't score again for another 10 or 11 minutes. Clare completely took over the game. Like, there was a real peaks and troughs vibe to this game as well. And like you were saying, in the past, when Tipperary would just rely on a big moment from players, to some degree, Tipperary did as well, because Morris would produce something, and well, it was Morris time and again, really. But like, it definitely was not a perfect performance.
No, it wasn't. Like, if you're being realistic, if you took out the goals that were mistakes, it probably was a Clare win. Like did 53 shots in the game, cleared it. Like that's huge. Like,
They had at least 10 more than Tipperary.
That Clare performance reminded me a lot of that All-Ireland semi-final last year. But an amount of shots against Kilkenny too. Like, when their decision-making at times when they're shooting is very... It's like they haven't learned from last year, some of the key, particularly the Kilkenny game last year.
Yeah, exactly. And I just... Yeah, like, then again, like, you have to look at it. We 5 debutants? Like...
Yeah.
And like we were looking at Brian O'Meara.
Way more experience.
Yeah, we were looking at Brian O'Meara and saying, we were talking in the terms of Brendan Matters and these lads, but he needs time now. Like that was his first championship game. Johnny Ryan's first. Like, I thought actually, after the goal, after say our goal off the sideline, Clare hit a long puck out. Shane O'Donnell won it, and they got past the Tipp defence, and McCarthy went down on goal, and there was a goal chance on. And I just thought Johnny Ryan, for his first championship game, his actually body position was excellent. He was nearly in a surfer position. So McCarthy was coming at him. I think there was another Clare player on his outside, and McCarthy looked at him and said, right, if I do give the hand pass out, Johnny Ryan's going to be able to get across, and just McCarthy tapped it over the bar. And if you compare that to Paul Flanagan, I think Paddy was talking about it on our game with Michael Verney, Shane. Like, Paul Flanagan's feet were literally 10-2. If you looked at the clock, it was flat, and Jake was able to go around him. So, like, even for small things like that, they're tiny little things, but like, for a lad to do that in the first 10 minutes of championship, like, it's excellent. Like Alan Tynan, probably the game passed him by in certain areas, and was probably covering track and runs that you just don't see and don't appreciate. But like, I think Garrod O'Connor made the ball stick. Like, that was, I mean, going to Ennis, and it's not that Ennis is first round of championship against Clare. I just think that some of the players needed time to get into the game, and maybe the goals just give us time and give us the kind of that just we're arm's length away. We were 2 scores away from Clare when the pressure came on, and God, we did need half time though, didn't we?
No,
Yeah.
certainly. Do you
Just
know?
go back to Shane. I meant the response after the 1-3. Like we're still a very streaky team where we allow teams to get runs on us. Like Clare got 6 points in a row very easily after we got the 1-3 start. Like, and I think Clare might have hit it 2 or 3 wides in that period as well. I thought we're still going periods in games, as you say, where we're not scoring. I think we only won 2 frees in the first half. That shows we weren't getting on the ball. If you're on the ball, you're drawing fouls, and you can maybe Jason Ford can maybe stick the ball down and just keep the scoreboard ticking. Like ideal scenario is in that 11-minute spell when Clare got the 6 points, Tipp should be maybe adding 1 or 2 points, maybe losing that period 6-2 rather than 6-0. And I thought in the second half we did that. Anytime Clare got 6-5-4, we were going back up the field and getting a 5th or a 6th point. We did that better in the second half, but we saw it against Limerick too, where teams can get runs on us and we're not able to stem it. And there was an element of that after the 1-3, and I think that's an area we can still do an awful lot better in, just stemming those little periods where teams get runs on us.
But is that a surprise, really, when you think like that where Tipperary are coming from? Had 6 championship defeats in a row. Confidence is, there's got to be like a little bit of nervousness there underneath the surface. And like just back to what you were saying, Sean, as well about Aidan McCarthy and popping that ball over the bar. And I agree with you. Johnny Ryan did very well with his positioning, but to me as well, they didn't go for the jugular the way Tipperary went for the jugular. Like obviously you don't need to give Jake Morris a second chance. And I think Liam Cahill has talked afterwards about how his team kind of do practice going for goals. And it was very evident with the underage team. I think at a stat before it was like 48 championship goals scored in like 5 seasons or something crazy like that. But to me, like Tipperary are still a team that's trying to find itself and get a bit of confidence back. So it's probably no surprise that Tip are streaky. And one final point on that, Sean, before I throw it to you is, like everyone says that, geez, you know what, Limerick can't be as bad again or they'll improve massively. But there's nothing to say that every other team can't improve massively. Like Clare can't be much better or Tip can't be much better the next day.
No, 100%. And like, I think what Shane said as well, like that, those streaks, like if you look at it, I think we hit 17 long puck outs the other day. And I think we only won, I think we lost 80% of the breaking ball. Of puck outs that broke, we lost 80% of the breaking ball. So what's happening there then is you're getting into kind of cycles where you puck out the ball is lost, Clare have a shot, might be a score, and then you're in the same position again. So some of that comes from just not being able to kind of get possession and just keep it down in the Clare half or the opposition's half for a period of time where your backs get set and you're able to win the ball. So like there was a lot of movement on the Tip puck out, which is good, like, and probably like when you get into those puck out, it's like club games. When you get into those kind of cycles where it's your puck out, then they're getting a shot. You just nearly have to load one side static and get down, put the ball down on a crowd and just,
turn into a war.
Like a dog. Yeah, absolute war, and let your back set. But, yeah, do you know what though? Up in Galway on Saturday as well, watching Wexford and Galway. And even looking at Limerick and Waterford as well, there's a lot of players in the championship at the moment that are using the first round of championship to get minutes in their legs. And like Tipper the same, and even Clare the same. And it was actually the first time I kind of thought, geez, this championship is a small bit early, like because there's lads getting injured or coming back late, and they're actually using championship to get minutes in the legs. Like Barrett needed minutes in the legs. Brian McGrath Ronan was away for a while because he was coming back from injury. Who else? You're probably Garrod O'Connor still getting,
Connor Stapleton. Well, I suppose he can come on, yeah.
Yeah. Do like there's a lot of lads that are using it. Like look at there. Yeah, Tony Kelly, these players, like there's a lot of players using, so I think you're right. I think teams will be, I think come the last round, if there's something, there will be stuff to play for. I think that's where you see the best teams because they'll have minutes in the legs.
I heard talk that Tony Kelly was carrying an injury. This was after the game now. Some of the locals were saying that Tony Kelly might have been carrying an injury, but Cathal Barrett did a great job in him all the same. Like you mentioned, some of those Tipperary players, I suppose Brian McGrath, Ronan Maher wouldn't be noted for their pace either. And at times they did look like they were a bit out of puff in the first half. I think John McGrath struggled in the first half as well. And like to me, I said to you, Shane, last week that I'd like to see Conor Bowe and Mark Keogh starting these games just because that have that extra drive and athleticism. Like Sean, for Tipperary to have a very long season, like you do need legs across the pitch, surely.
Yeah, and like think of it now, like you're playing like we conceded 53 shots. We did get opened, and like it's probably not going to happen in the next 2 weeks. But like we do have to probably maybe, as you said, Shane, about dropping a bit deeper. Like we do have the players like Jake, Mark Keogh, and Conor Bowe to play like maybe some teams do, where you're only playing with 3 or 2 forwards up top, and you're letting your half forward line go deep in midfield, and you're condensing that area. We probably do have the ability to do that now. Whether we will do it or not, but like, yeah, I just the one thing worry for me now is that I was behind the goals watching the game on Sunday, like as you said, Ronan, Brian O'Mara, and even Seamus at times. We were getting caught when the ball was played to the wings, and we were getting turned. And if you think about it, the next 3 teams we're playing are very good at running in that middle third area. And like we've been done by Waterford in the past, running from their defend, running at our half back line. You know, Cork have the ability to turn you. I'm sure Limerick are just, Limerick are doing it to every team. So I'd be interested to see, do we change? And it's not the Tipperary way. It is probably adjusting your game to the opposition. But like at the end of the day, we just need one more win, and you could be guaranteed hurling into June and July,
Yeah, Shane, like Tipperary aren't blessed with that sort of dynamic pace.
No.
Like obviously a few players, but like would that explain some of the, I suppose, selections for the game? Because when you're not getting, like when certain players aren't getting exposed for pace in training, then you're going to assume that they're flying and they'll go out and be very good in a match. But like just because players are going well against guys of similar pace in training, it doesn't mean that it will therefore transfer against Tony Kelly, Aidan McCarthy, Ian Galvin, Shane O'Donnell, Mark Rogers, and so on and so forth. So I think that is something that we really need to consider going forward. And that's not to dismiss any of the players that we've kind of mentioned earlier. They're all excellent players in their own right. It's just how many players that aren't really kind of all that quick can you pick in the one team?
Yeah, but I think the problem is there's no. I think there's like if you say, look, Brian McGrath, Brian O'Mara, and Ronan Maher's are half back line. Who's next up in the Heffernan? He's probably very similar. He's not quick either. Like we're not. You're probably Dan McCormick can go back there. Seamus Kennedy, similar type players. We're not blessed with serious pace in the back. So look, I think maybe as the back 6 beds down, maybe they'll start to read each other's game a bit better, get position a bit better. I suppose after the 5th goal on Sunday, I was very disappointed how open we still were. I would have thought, and maybe as they get more experience and maybe the bit more leadership comes into O'Mara and a few of the guys that to say, okay, I'm going to sit 5 yards deeper here. Midfield will sit 5 yards deeper. Just because like John Conlon made a brilliant run, untracked run, and I think 5 minutes to go, and I think it was just a poor touch and he might have been in. Shane O'Donnell got in, only the brilliant hoop by Brian O'Mara. Aaron Shanaher got in, impeded by Michael Breen, borderline maybe black card penalty, and then McCarthy got in for a goal at the very end. Like we were still shocking open even after the 5th goal. I do give them the benefit of the doubt. Like it's still a new team trying to bed in, and that maybe as the games go by, come a bit more experienced players will begin to know certain times of the game. Maybe we got to shut up shop here, keep things nice and tight. But back to your question in terms of pace, like the options probably really aren't there to change things up defensively in terms of getting more pacey, athletic players into the team. I think we've just got to, maybe the management sort of have to accept that, okay, by selecting Brian McGrath, Brian O'Mara, and Ronan Maher, we're going to lose that element maybe of serious speed and athleticism, but we're going to gain something going the other way. Like I think maybe they've accepted there's going to be a trade-off where we might suffer a little bit. Plus, I don't think there are many forward lines as wickedly quick as Clare. Like I know Limerick are probably more athletic. Waterford have a bit of a balance. Cork, bit of a balance. Like Clare are ridiculously fast. Like they have, I don't know what they were being bred out down there the last 20 years. Like they seem to have loads of quick players. And even looking out through the club game here in Tipp and looking at the 20s and minors this year, there's very few very blindingly quick players coming through. I don't know what it is in Tipp where we don't seem to be breeding an awful lot of quick players or something. It's very strange.
Yeah,
it's probably
No,
it's
go
probably
ahead.
a structural thing though. Like as in, you know yourselves, like you're involved with teams as well, like that when you know what you have, and 'tis more a structural thing where you need your midfield and your half forward line, you know, as you said, Shane, to start getting deeper, and you have to work with what you have. And I think maybe that's where, again, going back to Limerick, that's where Limerick have it nailed, that like they do not let their backs get in that scenario where they're really getting skinned, or they're really defending huge pockets of space because there's help either going through the middle, coming back through the middle, or there's help coming in front of them. And I think that's the way where we need to get in Tipp. And like, again, all you have to look at is I think we'd concede 30 shots inside our 45-meter line. Like that's like, when I'm looking at teams like that, and when you're analysing games, that's massive. Like there's rarely that happens. Like, so I think you do, you know, when you, as I said, like you look at Rowan or Brian and different scenarios and these 10-15 second scenarios where you're saying, oh, they're getting ran. But again, it's probably a team and a structural thing that needs to be bred into the team, and that doesn't happen overnight. Like,
no, I go through a few of the comments here. Hurling1234 says Tipp still missing a lot. Heffernan, Morgan, Cadell, Kieran Connolly. We won't be seeing any of those this year, I don't think. Clare are a better team and still lost. That person adds. Matthew Landy, great game for Tipp, but it always worries me how quick we can lose a lead. Hurling1234 again. Michael Breen will be disappointed the way Rogers caught that ball over him with two others around him. And Brendan Keeshan says hi from Ross Gray, up Tipp. So
yeah. You remember, you mentioned the goals we conceded. Like, geez, the first Rogers goal was nearly a carbon copy of the Limerick goal in the league semi-final. Like, it was Breen to be very disappointed that he didn't do more to impede Rogers and get the ball to ground, because I think we had two. It was a 3-on-1 in there, and then the second goal, Jesus, like it was a carbon copy of the two goals that got against us in Thurles last year, where Rogers made the run and nobody tracked him, and Tony Kelly saw him. Like, it was then a 3-on-2, and like, you know, it was an element online where I think McCarthy threw the ball back to Rogers, but the referee can't. He's too far back to call it and see it, and that's it. But that again, that's a structural thing. Like, if we can, that's going to take time. That's going to take that back six playing. Like, you think they'll be better than if the same six goes out, injury permitting, against Cork and against Limerick and against Waterford. They'll get confident. They'll start understanding each other's games and where to position themselves a little better. So, like, we look, this is not going to get fixed this year. This is going to be a gradual improvement. And as the commenter says, we've 12 months' time, Morgan will be back, Heffernan will be back, Cadell will be back. Maybe we'll find to be a good under-20 player. Like, I thought, there's two of our cornerbacks at under-20, Danny Slattery and Luke Shanahan, are brilliant prospects coming through, and they're quick, and Cathal Quinn as well. So, like, this is a long-term project. Can we contend for an All-Ireland this year? Yes. Will we win it? It's unlikely, but I think we can definitely contend.
Yeah, and I thought, sorry, Shane, I thought Clare maybe even done us a favour. Like, I know Foodie let in the goals, but like, I thought our half-back line played very deep and with little wit defending the Clare puck out. So we were getting really sucked in. Like, Ronan was hanging out a small bit out in this wing, but I thought we were very condensed, and that left loads of space. And it was going to be very hard for our wing forwards to cover that and, you know, be able to press up on their wing back if the ball went out short. So, like, I think Foodie did us a favour letting in the few goals, but I think he did a favour. He was actually very good with the ball in hand, hitting long puckouts. And I thought he probably done us a favour in terms of opening us up and getting players into that space. Because I think Clare won 15 long puckouts clean, like, which is, that's a huge figure. Like,
yeah,
Limerick wouldn't even do that in games. Like, so I to probably done us a favour, like that they're probably going to go back now and look and go, right, we need to trust and just mark a spot, and whoever comes over there, and if they all double up on the other side, then we just get back on that side. But again, like as you said, like it's early days for the team. You know, we're coming off an era where we had 4 or 5 generational hurlers, and like there was probably one playing there on Sunday still, but like it's, you know, there's a lot of work to do. But again, just I think the win was massive.
Shane, this is the day this is the days of yore at this stage. This is the way we're moving now, huh? But I reckon
every team will be doing Sunday. Like, you know, you're bred into looking at the program and jotting down the scores, and geez, last Sunday, and every time you gotta just say if Noel McGrath, God, where's Noel's number? What number is he wearing again? You have to look down through the list. Like it's it was. I was all when it was announced that the J were going down with this policy, I said, who's going to be the first county who does this? And I think Liam Cahill and Tipp was probably the last person I thought would be the first manager who would go down the route. But in fairness to him, afterwards he said it might be for the Cork game that they'll go back traditional, because I know it's a Saturday game, so they'll probably have to pick their team earlier in the week, so they might have it better organised. So it did. I know it frustrated an awful lot of people, but look, I do think he'll build a first.
The internet is struggling there.
Yeah, Shane seems to have frozen for me there. Yeah. But yeah, like if I was an intercounty manager, I reckon I'd do this, and I'd probably pick different squad numbers every single week to try and confuse the opposition. Like, your own players know each other. That's the main thing. You know, if you watch the county team and club team enough, you'll recognise every player anyway. So for like me the other day, it was a little frustrating, but I recognise most of the players all the time, Sean. But like, why wouldn't you do it?
Yeah, and like, but I understand it, but geez, the paranoia in intercounty hurling is just unbelievable. You'd swear if we named a team on Thursday night that like Clare were going to train for 72 hours non-stop on something for Sunday. Like, so I just, and look, I seen it myself when you're inside and Tipp, and you'd be in the dressing room and the team is named, and it's like, don't tell anybody, and someone could be down to start and not starting, and you're like, just that poor fella now has to go home and lehan to his parents and his girlfriend or whoever that he's starting, and he's actually not starting. Do you know? So I don't know. Like, look, teams are doing so much analysis now. Like, there's no rabbits out of the hat anymore. Like, you know what's going to happen. Like, I don't know. I'm just kind of, I don't watch, like, for media side of it, it must be a pain, is it?
Oh, it's definitely a pain. But you're like,
like, you'd love, like, okay, it's probably for local media, it's like we're more done Tuesday, Wednesday, but like, if you think for national media, if a team come out Thursday or Friday, at least for a Saturday paper, you can maybe do something on matchups and stuff like that. You can add a bit to your preview in the 48 hours up to the game. Like I would have thought most senior intercounty management teams, if you play an A versus B game the week before, you know that Sunday night effectively what you're starting 15, bar maybe you have somebody that maybe needs a fitness test during the week. You largely know what your 15 is going to be the following weekend. Maybe you just have to update your subs bench.
Yeah. Like, it should get to the stage now where you name your 15, and like, obviously if you're 5 substitutions, maybe you're allowed 1 change, and if you make any more changes after naming your team, that's you using up a sub. That would stamp it out pretty quickly. But you always need to go hard.
That's the regulation. But I think the thing is now is that you only have to name your 26. You don't have to name your starting 15, like, so.
But that's typical GEA. It's kind of like a real soft approach, and people are going to take the mick out of it all the time. But going forward, Sean, are you confident now that Tipperary can find a way out of the group stages?
I am, yeah. I would be, yeah. No, I would be worried. I'm just still worried about that thing we talked about, the structure thing of conceding scores and conceding shots. And even in the league, like, I think we got outshot by 10 shots by Dublin, like. So it's kind of a worry, like. And you just need some team to hit their straps, and you have no way back. I for some reason, I think this Cork game is the one that we need to target. I think going on Sunday, usually Munster Championship is all guns blazing and everyone just going for it. And Davy's kind of making the Munster Championship a bit tactical and, kind of different.
Is he the only one, though?
I think he's bringing a kind of thing where your shape is totally upset by what he's doing. Whereas I think even Limerick, right, they do bring lads back, but they're not totally upsetting you could go out and say, right, we're holding our six backs or we're doing this or midfield, but I think Davy is just, and it's not a bad thing. I'm not saying it as a bad thing, but I'm always worried when Tipp play Waterford because of the legs they have and what they've done in the past. Like, they've just broke out of defence and ran through us in midfield and the half back line. And based on last Sunday, there is still those issues. So I would be worried about the Waterford game. The Limerick game, I think you can go out and play unreal for 50 minutes and they'll just break you. And mentally, you'll be just shattered after it and physically. So I think the Cork game is the one. And like, but it looks a bit like Cork are probably still going back with likes of Patrick Horgan on the team. And no disrespect to him, but like, I don't think Patrick Horgan is going to win a ball out in the corner and drop the shoulder and take you on and go 30 metres with the ball anymore. I think he's going to win the ball and recycle or try and put it over on the back foot. And I think they probably were spooked last year after playing Galway and not having him on the field and missing frees and not being in the game because of it. So, like, they're still probably relying on Conor Lehane, Seamus Harnedy and Patrick Horgan in the forward line. So that kind of, Harndy's still a great player. Lehane can do anything on the day. But I think we might be, even man on man, might be easier able to stop some of the Cork forwards. But it's about stopping their midfield and the few speedsters. And that's a structure thing. That's not man on man stuff. That's us getting our half back line in midfield, sitting on them. And that's why I agree with you.
I agree, because I thought before if we were to win one of our two away games, what would the best chance be? I always thought Cork, because Cork will let you hurl. Okay, they have loads of pace, but they will let you hurl, and Tipp on a hurl. Like, it won't be an overly tactical game, I would have thought. Like, both teams, like, Tipp will let Cork hurl, but Cork will let Tipp hurl, but Tipp don't mind that. Tipp on a hurl, like, so. Like, I think it's a massive opportunity. Like, you think this week Cork are going into their first game now. They're psyched up. They're mud. It's all Waterford. They're getting emotionally up. You can think next Sunday evening, win or lose, that emotion is going to be there for a couple of days. And then they have to maybe start thinking about Tipp or nice and fresh now. They can come down off, come again, get into there. Like, and particularly if Cork lose on Sunday, which I think it's not beyond the bounds of possibility. I think even though Waterford would have expended a lot of energy last Sunday, I think the game under their belt is a huge. I know Davy, coming back, Davy was saying the right things after, in terms of we don't accept moral victories, but I'd say secretly he was thrilled. Nearly we competed, we came up short, but I think he always knew the Cork game was the one. Like, I think if Waterford playing Cork last weekend, there's no way Austin Gleeson would have started on the bench. I think he was calculated. We'll get Austin 20 minutes building up to Cork, like, so. He'll be starting. Can you imagine if Tipp beat Cork, and then you're going into the Limerick game, and like the crowd, hopefully the Tipp fans are coming out, like, you could have 30,000-40,000 for that Limerick game, and it's a free swing then, and they're probably going to be without Declan Hannon, who I thought looking at that game, as soon as he went off, Limerick didn't look their whole. I wouldn't say they didn't look as sure about what they were doing, and especially defensively. You're replacing Declan Hannon with Dan Morrissey at centre back. It's complete. They're complete. I think they're both bring completely different things. Like, so. Look, I suppose if we beat Cork, or effectively 1 foot in the last thing, and you want to get your business done as early as you can, like, in terms of the top three. You don't want to be leaving it assuming you'll win one of your two home games, which is there's no guarantee. Sure, look, Thurles is a fucking home venue for Waterford this year, so they'll be as familiar with Thurles as we are. So we can't be gambling on the last game to getting, or the Limerick game to be getting us 2 points. Like, so
Yeah. Well, before we move on to other matches, one final point about the Tip game. Tipperary had 6 goal chances, and one of those was a shot that dropped short from Brian O'Mara that Jason Ford nearly flicked to the net. So I don't even know if you count that as a goal chance, but the other 5 anyway, 5 goals, whereas Clare 3 from 7. Which will just tell you they obviously had far more opportunities to punish Tipperary. But Jake Morris, you were talking there about Patrick Horgan maybe not dropping the shoulder and sprinting 30 yards. Is there a player who looks like more of a goal threat this year so far than Jake Morris, Sean?
Yeah, and that's why I like Mark Keogh as well. Like he said, Mark Keogh, like that's one thing Mark does is he'll get the ball and he'll drop the shoulder, and that's what we need, and that's what we've been like. Go back to Bubbles' goal against Kilkenny in 2016 All Ireland, just winning the ball, drop the shoulder, able to get around the defender and bang. So yeah, like Jake gets a lot of criticism, and I think he's just the type of player where you just say, Jake, right, no matter what happens, you're playing 70 minutes today. You know, if you don't get on a couple of balls, just work yourself into the game, hit someone, chase someone, do something. Because he did, there was a couple of balls at the start. I know he got the point to start. There was a couple of balls that were messed up, but I think he probably has more confidence now, and he knows the management are backing him, and he's their main man, and you know, and even not being on the freeze and stuff like that makes a huge difference. But I'd like to see J.O. maybe out the field a bit. I think J.O. if J.O. was out the field, I think, you know, you watch him with the Mines, and I know it's only club level, but when he's out the field, and sometimes he's been double marked, but he still gets scores. He's able to pop up. He's kind of like Noel, that sort of way. And I just feel sometimes inside it's a bit too claustrophobic for him, you know, that sort of way.
Doesn't really have the pace, whereas yeah, that's why maybe if there was, I'd say if you were picking the team now, there'd probably be 2 changes for Cork. You're probably Conor Stapleton probably coming in, maybe, you know, in the middle, and I probably would look at maybe Keogh for John McGrath, but Keogh being in with Morris and maybe Jason Ford having the slightly withdrawn role out towards centre forward. I think that would be, particularly what Cork will do, I think that would be the perfect setup.
Okay,
have you watched much of Cork?
Sorry. It's hard to know because I don't think we've seen an awful lot of them. Like the league semi-final, I don't think you can read an awful lot into that. I suppose it all depends on will Robbie O'Finn be fit to play? Will Darragh Fitzgibbon? I suppose they're playing catch up with fitness. So I'd be fascinated to see how they go on Sunday. I think that will. Will it be a new Cork or will it be the same old Cork? I think we'll get a fair handle at on Sunday.
Yeah, I mean, actually, the Kilkenny game suggested same old Cork, but the positives from the regulation league games were that they won several games that were tight, and over the last number of years, and I remember talking to John Myler about this, that post strikes or whatever, Cork got into a habit of losing tight games that they'd previously won. So maybe that was a slight departure for them this year. Limerick and Waterford, so that was 118 to 19 points. Sean, when did Limerick last score as little as 118 in a championship game?
Jeez, it must be 4 or 5 years ago at least, is it?
Yeah.
It was interesting, but at the end of the day, lads, there was 7 minutes at a time. They played 30 minutes with only 14 men, and they got the job done in Munster Championship. I watched the game from behind the goals. Got the recording, and I was watching it, and do you know what? It actually reminded me of the All Ireland semi-final between Wexford and Tipp. Waterford hit one poke out to their backs, and they kind of targeted Gillan. They worked the ball out. Conor Gleeson put the ball over the bar, and they never went after that again. They just went short and boomed the ball into the Limerick defence. And that Limerick defence, booming long ball into a crowd like that, it's kind of like doing it against Kilkenny back in the 2000s. You're just not getting much change off it. Like Ozzy got a point that was chalked off for a square or a tackle on Quaid. It was a pure kick over the bar was all he was able to get through. We weren't able to get away and get striking. So, but I believe, lads, I like the media were hyping up Waterford and what they done to Limerick puck-out. Like Waterford only scored 1 point off the Limerick puck-out. Like they didn't destroy it, and Limerick still scored 1, 5 or 6 off their own puck-out. Like I thought Limerick the other day, there was a few times where they, after doing a really good thing, they slipped or there was a miscontrol or something, and you're like, geez, another day that would have been a score, that would have been true for a goal. But Waterford definitely did upset Limerick in the middle third, which not many teams do, and they got a good few turnovers. and got scores off it. But I don't know. It's hard to know with Limerick. Like I just see Kylie. He's just trying to create some sort of edge and cause, isn't he? Like, I think last year
a bit of a siege mentality.
Yeah, Peter Casey and Keane Lynch was enough of a cause last year. But like, Jesus, Peter Casey, lads, have you ever seen a forward to just, get back and be in the right positions? It's unbelievable. Like that's what we need in Tip. Like, we just need, like, we need forwards like that. Like, well, not that we don't, you just need that, whatever needs to be done in training and structurally and in our heads. We need that, like.
It was interesting what John Kiley said afterwards. He goes, let's be honest about it. There was some amount of bull SH1T spoken about our team and the season ahead of this week and the week before. It's a softening up exercise meant to be outside of our camp, but we're around a long time. We know that's all folly and nonsense. Every day you go out there, you're there to be beaten. But like, I mean, teams that are used to challenging over the decades or whatever, they're used to this sort of crack. I mean, Tipperary, obviously famously haven't retained the All-Ireland since the 60s, but like, you're used to it. You're made favourites once you win the All-Ireland. And because of the manner of some of their victories, what does he expect teams to, what's he expect the media to say, Shane?
I think he accepts that, but I think every word of what he said last weekend was aimed at his players. And probably the Limerick supporters, that maybe, okay, Limerick supporters just cool the jets here, but also to his players, lads. Maybe he sensed, coming up to the Waterford game, there was a small bit of in the dressing room, he probably sensed that maybe there was a small bit of slackness, and it probably came out in their performance. Okay, they got off to a great start, but 118, how many shots did they have? 30, 31? Did they even have 30 shots? Like, it was very, very low. So I think every
34. Everyone probably looks at it slightly differently, but I think every word of that was aimed at his players. And look, I would expect a very driven, angry sort of a Limerick performance this weekend. So it's like they might have a cause later today if word comes out that Seamus Flanagan is a one-game ban. Personally, look, I don't think he's a leg to stand on. I think it was... Look, we're in an era in other sports, particularly rugby, where head-high contact is a red card, whether it's deliberate or not, and I think that was a nailed-on one. Like, so, and I think you think if it does happen, that's 3 retrospective punishments against Limerick this year. 1 is, you could say, is unfortunate. 3 is now a trend, so that's something they've got to deal with. But back to next weekend, I think they'll be an awful lot better, an awful lot sharper. They'll be vulnerable without Hannon. If Flanagan doesn't play, definitely when Flanagan and Gillan play, it just works in their full forward line. When one or the other is missing, they don't look as, it doesn't gel as well. So they're potentially vulnerable, and I think Clare have to come out all guns blazing. They'll have David Fitzgerald back. If Clare have a good first half and a bit of momentum into the second half, maybe there could be an upset here, but I'd fancy Limerick will be a little bit stung by their poor performance. Well, I would say average performance to say last weekend, and will probably be Clare. Sean, I suppose this is going to come off as 3 Tipperary lads agreeing to kind of ban some of the players on the top team, but like realistically, Seamus Flanagan doesn't have a leg to stand on. Like, he doesn't look to go out, like, excellent player, doesn't look to go out of the way, and even at the end of the contact, his arm goes out a bit. Now, he didn't connect, and I'm not saying he looked to elbow, but it just showed that it was momentum was not exactly being stopped, is how I read it. Barry Nash, he got that yellow card for tapping Stephen Bennett on the head. That's fine, yellow card for that. But then he came through and I think cleaned out Calum Lyons. His hip hit Lyons' head. Then later on, Bennett was looking to rise the ball inside the 14, albeit outside the penalty area. So he tripped him going through on goals with the hurley. And I'm like, surely that's like, this is 3 red cards potentially. You're never going to get really 3 red cards in one game.
The Hegarty one, you can't make that challenge on a yellow card.
But like, there is too much of it.
You just can't do it. Like, so.
Yeah, I think there was a huge frustration though there, because there was some tackles. Peter Casey just put his 2 hands out at one stage, and the player ran into him, and it was a free against him. I think
Tom Morrissey towards the end made a tackle, and he nearly. I've never seen Tom Morrissey lose there. It's sort of interesting that Limerick probably trained that ferociously physical way, but then you come into a match against a team who are not as physical and a referee who won't allow you to. You'd wonder, our Limerick training, there's that ferocity in training. Is it actually coming against them sometime in games because the things that they're allowed in training, they won't be allowed in matches?
No, I should be shot for this, but I think Waterford were, every time they got contact like that, they were down. At one stage in the first half, I think Conor Leeson got tackled. He was straight down like he was shot, and then won the free, and 2 seconds later he was up. Even the time when Flanagan hit Bennett, watch it back. Bennett got hit, and next thing Hurley was thrown over the shoulder, and it was the two hands up. Like there was helmets going off a lot when they were tackled. Like they knew what they were doing as well. Like they were trying to sell the referee give the referee a picture that, geez, I'm after getting hit hard here. Mm-hmm. Like the Flanagan one, you can see why it could be a red. You see what yellow. Like it happened so quick. But as you said, at the end, then the elbow went up. It was like an awkward way of protecting himself, but he still got a bit on your man, like, which, yeah, I don't know, like it's.
I think you're doing too much coaching in a hand. I think you're coming across as an apologist for Limerick here.
No, I know, but no, there is an element there where they are getting away with a lot, and maybe they're suffering from getting away with things over the last few years, and now referees are in meetings there up in Croke Park, and they're saying, well, this needs to be stamped out, that needs to be stamped out, and they are getting the red cards over what they've done. But I just think I think there was a frustration there coming from some of the tackles during the game, which were probably legitimate. Now, it happens to every team. They were legitimate, but they were blown for frees. But look, I'd say he probably will get done, will he?
Yeah, well, from reading Colin Keys yesterday morning, you would think that it was dealt with in the referee's report. They saw it and they felt, but last night the word coming out is that it's going to be reviewed, and if that's the case, you probably think he's in trouble. Like, so, it'd be interesting to see what happens. Just coming back to an incident in that game, I was driving to Ennis and I was listening to the first half on Limerick radio, and Jesus, the two commentators got, everything is one-eyed on local radio, and geez, awful challenge by Hutchinson on Sean Flynn, like, and said, geez, like he swung across him, yellow card, fine. Jenna looked back on the telly, like Sean Flynn didn't even flinch.
Oh, he didn't.
Sean Flynn didn't even think it was a free. Like, Jesus, this guy's a freak. Like, so he was like, Sean Flynn was actually more worried at giving out about the lad who didn't make the run up the field than actually looking for the free. Like, this guy is incredible. Like, so
yeah.
Like, I even
actually and it was a fair swing from Hutchinson. He didn't even feel it.
Watching Galway the other day, and I know if Dave Morris with him, he's from Cork, and he's doing the analysis with him, but he's a tackling coach as well. Jesus, Galway's tackling was ferocious the other day against Wexford. It was absolutely unbelievable. Like they only gave away 8 frees. I think they turned over Wexford like something like 22 times in the midfield. Like it's a huge part of the game. It's probably coming from the football side of things, but I don't know. Like it's just, I don't know what to think. Like if we start, it's going to be like rugby now. If we start pinning those kind of high-ish enough challenges, we could be getting a lot of red cards and stuff like that. You wonder then, the people after watching Six Nations, then they're all into their high tackles and stuff like that. But look, you don't want anyone getting badly injured. But geez, definitely Waterford were doing a bit of acting too at times, which probably nothing wrong with it either. Like you have to do what you need to do. Like.
But I'm not. Look, if he does get suspended, it doesn't bother me in the slightest. But I just think if you look at what Kyle Hayes and Will O'Donoghue got 1 match bans for, I personally think what Flanagan did was it was particularly with. Look, I know hurling and rugby different sports. There probably have different stresses on head high, but like if you're trying to stamp out concussions in head high, like that. What happened there was very. Look, it was. I think it was just. That's as nailed on a head high challenge you want to stamp out in any game as you want.
Yeah, Sean. Just about Dara Egan there. I mean, he didn't have Lee Chin, of course, which was a massive blow. And I wonder, like, if go back to that challenge match recently against Tipp, leaving all the nastiness aside, would he have been like, geez, I should have nearly wrapped him up in cotton wool, maybe the way Clare have with Shane O'Donnell. But that is a worrying performance. They got such a great start with those early goals, and Galway took over.
I think, the injuries, I think they'd so, looking at it the other day, like they were able to go for 20, 25 minutes, and then they just, the legs weren't there. Just the games after, like Rory O'Connor, a lot of the players just have missed so much time during the league and having training done, and they just gassed. And in the second half, it was noticeable that they, you know yourself, Wexford, they want to work the ball out. Their backs weren't able to work the ball out. Like, they just looked tired, and they needed, again, it's back to that thing, they needed that game time in their legs, and it's championship hurling now. But the only thing for Dara is, like, and he's like, Galway and Kilkenny are kind of free shots. It's Dublin and Antrim you need to really win, and Westmeath. But looking at Galway, like, Galway have unbelievable hurlers, forwards, unbelievable. And this is a probably popular comment or point of view, but I think Galway looked clueless at times in the game. I just thought, I was like, what? Now, look, I've been involved with teams, and you're, after doing so much over 5 or 6 months, and then you go and play a match, and you're like, Jesus, did we do anything at all? But, like, I found it strange. I just thought they were very naive the way they played. There was times Pádraig Mannion had a ball, caught it twice, just had it on the hurley and let it off straight down to the spare man. I thought their tackling was unbelievable. I thought that side of it was fine, but puck outs, use of the ball, how to use the extra man, I thought it was very, very lacked detail. Like, and I'm not having a personal attack at Shefflin or whoever is involved, but I just thought it was very go out and hurl kind of sort of thing. And I just think Galway have such good hurlers and such good physicality that if they tightened up on those type of things, they could match Limerick in a once-off game. I don't know what you think. Did you see it, or what did you think of it?
Well, we might come back to that. We have a couple more things to get through before we finish up. The Tipperary under-20s winning. Talk about that, Shane, for us.
Yeah, big win last Friday night. 2 points, like, it was a must-win game, and you're thinking half-time 10 points up, but they should cruise home. But look, I think that 10-point lead was false, because Limerick had an awful lot of chances in the first half that they shot wide. And yeah, I suppose the concern was that lead was whittled back to 1 point, I think, in the second half. But I remember that the first half, the effort that Tipp lads were putting in was incredible. And I said that they're going to suffer here a small bit for it. And I think they did. But I thought with 10 minutes to go, they were going to lose it. But in fairness, they really dug in brilliantly. Sean Kennelly had a massive game. Like, I think he's definitely a senior player for the future. He just has that power and that physicality. Shoulders responsibility. He can stick a puck out on the top of them, and he'll win it. Subs came on. Damien Corbett was very good when he come on. So look, like, to come through with what is effectively a knockout game last Friday was brilliant. Like, they should take an awful lot of confidence and belief from that. Just got to make sure to take care of business against Waterford this Friday. Waterford are already out. The likes of Mark Fitzgerald, Paddy Fitzgerald, Pádraig Fitzgerald. I think that there's 3 or 4 lads that will be playing senior Sunday. So Waterford will not be at full strength. They can't go in thinking it's just going to happen. Like, Waterford have nothing to play for. They're going to be there. They'll throw the kitchen sink at this. They have no pressure on them. So go out there and handle your business. And that will get Tipp a home semi-final against either Limerick or Clare. Like, so you think after the difficult start, bit of momentum going, if they win, bit of momentum going to the semi-finals will be good. But I thought the interesting thing for me on Friday was the way Tipperary more or less completely changed their game plan for the first 2 games. They were way more direct. Like, okay, not overly direct, but they got the ball into the inside forwards quicker. That frustrated me against Cork and Clare. We nearly tried to work the ball out all the time, and our 2 inside forwards were nearly passengers in there. Whereas this time they got the ball in, and it worked out. We got 115 isn't a huge tally, but it seemed to suit an awful lot more of our players. The Jack Leamy's and I thought Darren McCarthy was very effective in sort of that floating role coming out from corner forward. So look, he's tried an awful lot of guys. Like I think he's not quite sure maybe on his best starting 15, but I think they're gradually getting there over the last couple of games, and hopefully they'll get the job done this Friday.
Sean, I know you have to go to school now shortly, so we'll try not to keep them much longer.
No, interesting though with the long ball, like you're watching loads of games as well. Like I think there's a team even in inter-county level, senior county level. I think there's a place there for like, as in, like you saw Lee Chin and Conor Mack last year against Clare. Like I just think there is a place for, like, and you see it there. Like players are struggling to defend high ball because they're so used to defending, 20, 30 yards of space in front of them. Like it's like even Mikey Britt, the goal we conceded, like.
Yeah,
I think there's definitely, if you can find someone that can snap ball and drop the shoulder, I think there's a huge outlet there to do it in club and county level at the moment. So I don't know what you think.
Yeah, without doubt, like especially now, like we saw with the Clare Tip game the other day, 2 versus 2 inside, and then everyone else. Like there was times that I think Tip management were roaring at, for example, Ronan Maher to get back there and cover the space, or John Conlon was a mile out as well. The Tip Miners picking up a win was, obviously it's season over for James Woodlock and Co. Shane, but it's still important to finish out the season with a win.
Yeah, no, it was I suppose, for a disappointing campaign, but good to finish it on a high. At least you don't come out of the campaign winless. Like, so I think 3 points out of 8. Look, not a bad return, but I suppose like I still, like, I suppose, not winning that game against Limerick. That was a game probably they could have won. I suppose that goal with 5 minutes to go really killed them. It was like I thought the performance that night was excellent. Just a slow start against Clare and Cork probably cost them. And I still come back to this thing of, particularly for minors, I think 2 away games to start a minor championship is an awful lot. I think they've got to find some, particularly if at underage level, don't play 2 away games to start. Mix it up a bit, because just they're not mature enough to cope with that. Like, and like we saw, they got better when they got home, but the damage was done at that stage. Like, so.
Yeah. I'd say we'll let you go at that stage, Sean. You've been brilliant with your time so far. Your column is in the Nina Guardian, so people can catch it there. Cheers, Sean.
Cheers. Have a good one. Enjoy the weekend, boys.
You too.
Okay, so let's move on to the Tipperary footballers losing to Kerry. I mean, what can you say, really? Nobody expected Tip to win this game. Had a decent start, but ultimately the All-Ireland champions, they were always going to pull away.
Yeah, I know. I watched most of the first half on GA Go on Saturday. Sure, from early stages, you saw it was very much a containment exercise. Tip, even when they had a nice bit of ball in the first 15 minutes, 20 minutes, but they were very cautious. Like, they were taking no risks in terms of maybe pumping a ball in, or maybe gambling and trying to break through the lines and maybe getting a score. Like, it was just trying to take the sting out of the game as much as you could. And look, I suppose to a certain extent it worked that they didn't concede a goal. Okay, they conceded a penalty, and Michael O'Reilly, I suppose, will he'll be able to tell the grandkids one day that he saved a penalty from David Clifford. Clifford goes on to be one of the greatest players of all time. But I suppose you'd like to think maybe, okay, you're playing a containment game, but you'd love to think you'd score more than 5 points. You'd maybe take a few more risks going forward, a few long range shots. Sure, what's the worst can happen? You're just going to give Kerry the kick out, and at least you'll be set up defensively. So, look, I suppose, psychologically, they went down there knowing they were going to lose. I think the management, I'd say, more or less had them set up. Like, the team that was picked, I'd say only 2 out and out starting forwards there. So, but look, now is the pressure. Like, they've got to talk the talk now in the Tailteann Cup. They've got to show something in the Tailteann Cup. I think it's going to be a very, very difficult campaign for Tip in it. We've only won 1 game in the league and championship this year, and that's against Waterford. Like, so look, we're going to struggle probably to even get to the knockout stages of that competition. Like, so, but I just hope they go out and do themselves justice, have a go. Like, be prepared maybe to lose the ball high up the field and maybe get caught the underway. Because, like, look, you have an awful lot of teams in that who are going to have, like, I'd say every team in the Tailteann, maybe the vast majority of teams in the Tailteann Cup will be going into it at absolutely no momentum. Meath have no momentum. You're probably thinking they probably don't want to be there. Cavan, probably thinking, okay, they were there last. Maybe they'll probably have a bit of a go up at thinking, okay, we got to the final, but we didn't win it last year. Let's go and win it this year. But then there's like Limerick, like there's, I think a lot of the Tailteann Cup will come down to mentality and who wants it enough, who wants to give it the respect it deserves and generate some momentum for next year. I think that's going to be the fascinating thing for me, because this is the first year of the round robin, not Tailteann, and who really wants it, like, so.
Yeah, it might take a couple of rounds for us to see who's serious about it, and then the knockout stages become very tasty. The Tipp minor footballers beat Waterford, Clare coming up next. Then also the Tipp ladies footballers are facing Cork next Saturday, which won't be easy.
No, Sunday in Clare at 2:00. Yeah, I suppose. I suppose the format in Munster this year is round robin, so Tipp are going to be playing Cork and Waterford and the league champions Kerry. So you're thinking that's going to be tough. But look, it's all about building for the All-Ireland series. So like, you think Tipp are over the next few weeks are guaranteed 6 senior football championship games, which is great, like, for their development. I suppose realistically for Tipp, it's probably another campaign where if they can maintain their senior status, maybe come the end of it, it'd probably be a good season. Like, they've had a very good some good minor teams coming through again, so they've filtered through a couple of young girls into the squad this year. So like Aisling Maloney would have come on or not for that league campaign. She'll be fitter and stronger, and probably still a bit of inexperience there, but look, it's great to see on the Division 2 league team of the season. Anna Rose Kennedy and Aisling Maloney got on it. So like they have a very, very strong spine, like, just need a bit more experience with the wings. But look, they're going to get 3 perfect games in the Munster Championship for the All-Ireland series. Like, you think Munster ladies football is very, very strong, like, and hopefully can do it. Because like it's hopefully they'll get off to a competitive start. It'll be tough against Cork, but maybe Cork are probably not as strong as they were in the last few years, but they'll still be decent.
So lots of big action, GA action.
I know we didn't touch on it earlier on, but Dara Egan up against Darren Gleeson on Sunday. Like, imagine the amount of times they did goalkeeping drills in Semple Stadium or Saturday evening. Like, massive game. Like, you think if Antrim are in that game with 20 minutes to go, potentially, as Sean said, maybe a couple of those Wexford players, maybe not up to 100% fitness, like, and the pressure on Wexford. And like, from listening to Tom Dempsey the other day, like, Damien Rec got injured in the warm-up last weekend. Lee Chin did his AC joint last Wednesday in training. You think if there's one thing what Antrim are going to do in the first few minutes is going to test that AC joint. Like, it's I think Wexford will win, but Jesus, a huge opportunity for Antrim to go down there and really put the willies under Wexford, isn't it? Yeah,
geez, that's a fair way to put it. Put the willies under Wexford. Right, so that's it for the show this week. We'll be back again next week talking about all things GA. Tipperary get to sit back and sort of enjoy what's going on this weekend and back into it then. All right, Shane, thanks very much.
Here, Shane.